Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
This is Mr. Chris Claremont, a legend.
Melanie goes,
Tired.
It is Tuesday, all you mentees, and that means it's time to take an advanced look at the upcoming collected editions from Marvel Comics this week. We're going to be looking at books coming out the week of July 1st or 2nd of 2025. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these collected editions. Each one of these books is due out in the direct market and book market on July 1st or 2nd of this year, 2025. So if you're watching this like 5 years from now, hope they're all in print. Hope we got an omni of a couple of these already, and reprints of some others. Anyway, but yes, today we're going to be looking at 2 epic collections and 2 trade paperbacks of ongoing series. But before I go any further, don't forget to hit that like button, please. It goes a long way for us here on the channel. Small thing you can do, but it does mean the world to us. And as always, I put timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around the video in case you're just wondering about 1 or 2 titles. All right. Let's go ahead and start today with, let's do Spider-Boy. Spider-Boy Volume 3, The Dragon's Challenge. Who is that young lady? Well, that young lady is about to blow up because of this particular collection, and we have to talk a little bit about her. And this is the 3rd volume of the ongoing series by Dan Slott and Paco Medina. Humberto Ramos doing some of the artwork early on. But this is Spider-Boy. And this particular volume collects issues 11 through 16. Here's by the way, spoilers for what previously happened, and maybe a little bit of spoilers as to what's happening through this volume, particularly with the character of that young lady here. All right. So let's talk about the credits here. Dan Slott, Paco Medina, with Humberto Ramos on issue number 14. Eric Arciniega is the color artist, and then Joe Caramagna doing the lettering. Now, this is talking about what happened in the previous 2 volumes with the character of Bailey Briggs. This little guy right here, that was supposed to be part of the Spider-Verse, but it's supposed to be like part of the Spider Totem. However, something happened in the previous volumes where people forgot about him. And this is in the aftermath of how people found out about him. So it's like his friends and family and the entire world is starting to remember there was a Spider-Boy named Bailey Briggs. Even his own mom starts playing a role through this. So this is in the aftermath of everything that happened in the previous 2 volumes again. And I will say that this series has been such a joy to read. It kind of reminds me of those early issues of Dan Slott that he was working on. I know he had like 10 years on Spider-Man, but if you go back to like the early stuff with the Big Time, oh my gosh, it was just so good. And that's what this reminds me of. So everyone, the whole world, his classmates, all know about Spider-Boy. Do they know his secret identity? No. But some of them do. And Paco Medina just bringing in that art. I think he is such a perfect artist for young kids. Like, growing up, I always thought of people like Tom Grumet or even Humberto Ramos as the perfect artist for young characters. I think Paco Medina is perfect for that role. I think he's got, this cartoonish look to all his faces that give them that kind of a young flair. But we are here to talk about the debut of a new character. And this new character is training under none other of all the villains, Bullseye. That's right. Bullseye has been training this new character to take down Spider-Boy. And that's what this volume is. We have the introduction of this new character. Looks like she's part of the Hand at first, and then it is revealed who she is and how she came to be. And how she came to be is really interesting because it has ties to the character of Spider-Boy. And remember what I said, that nobody really remembers who he is? Well, now they do. So that actually kind of propels this origin story for this young girl named Maka Akana. And you are going to see, here we go, it's like starting with the flashbacks here. of Daredevil training Spider-Boy, and he's starting to remember these things too. But you have Makawalu Akana now, who is training under Bullseye. And I'm not going to reveal why they're training together. And she also holds a secret, like how she has her superpowers. But this is her making her debut. So it's kind of like retconning in a character's origin, because you're technically doing that with the character of Spider-Boy. Now, at first she is a ninja, and then she reveals herself with her new identity as Spider-Girl. And Spider-Girl has a series. My buddy Torun Grombeck is actually writing the series. I don't think that we've gotten past the first couple of issues, but she is currently writing it. Now, this adventure will take us from America to Japan, to Madripoor, where there's a big, huge gladiator-style type of match. You're going to see some returning characters here, not just from the pages of Daredevil, but pages of, like, the Punisher, and pages of, like, the New Warriors, and how Bailey is going to tie into all of this, along with the character of Spider-Girl. So, it's going to be interesting how they both work together, how they're at odds with each other, and what comes of this particular storyline. I did hear, unfortunately, that the series was canceled. I think it ends with issue 20-something. So the next trade paperback will probably be our last one. But this has issues 11 through 16. It has 136 pages. We're going to look at the back here for some extras. So we do have extra spec here, like the variant covers. And this one retails for $17.99. And these are in thumbnail size. And that is Spider-Boy Volume 3, The Dragon's Challenge. It is an all-out war with this next volume of Immortal Thor. This is Volume 4, The Son of Thor. The Son of Thor. That could only mean one thing, right? Well, let's get to this first. So returning here is Al Ewing and Jan Bazaldua doing the art. The color is by Matt Hollingsworth, bringing it all together. And look at this for issue number 19. It is not just Jan Bazaldua, but Dan Jurgens and Brett Breeding, along with Phil Noto, David Baldeón, Lee Garbat, and Humberto Ramos, just to name a few of these legendary artists that are helping out with that anniversary issue. And then your color artist right here, besides Matt Hollingsworth, and your letterer, Joe Sabino. So this is collecting issues 16 through 20 of the Immortal Thor series. 120 pages, $15.99, each one starting with a quote. And spoilers for what happened previously in this run, and just a little bit of a pitch of what's happening here. Because Thor right now is known as the All-Father Thor. That's what's happening here in these pages. And he's going to have a rematch with Dario Agger. Now, Dario has gotten the ability to give people godlike powers. And we'll get to that here in a second. We already saw Chen Lu here, the radioactive man. We go back to Asgard, where now it is Sif that's in charge of the Bifrost, and that's been established for a while now. So if you haven't read Thor, you might be thinking, wait, what the heck is going on? Some things are changing. Some things have changed, but that's okay. It's comics. Eventually somebody, maybe 10, 20, 30 years down the road, will be like, you know what? I kind of miss Heimdall, so let's bring that character. Anyway, so what this is, remember what I said about Dario Agger is able to, like, give characters godlike powers? Well, we know that he hates the character of Thor, and right now All-Father Thor has been the most powerful he's been in a long time. So Dario gives the radioactive man these godlike powers, but he's not alone, because he also gives King Cobra, Mr. Hyde, these godlike powers. So now they're kind of even up the odds with the character of Thor, but they're not alone, because then comes in Grey Gargoyle. And man, what they do to Thor, I can't imagine reading this monthly. Like, they smash Thor up like he's dead, but we are dealing with a god. Sometimes in between the issues is where you're going to find variant covers. But yes, this issue right here is an exploration to the character of Thor and the difference between the Odin's son character and the character of Donald Blake, and the big part that Donald Blake is playing through here. Now, eventually, we do have, that's right, I said there's only one thing that could mean with the son of Thor, and I called it. I was like, there's no way anybody's going to remember that weird Dan Jurgens character, but nope, sure enough, here he is, Magni! That's right. This is a character that was introduced through the pages of Dan Jurgens' run. I think it was towards the end of his run, like right before the Michael Avon Oeming run. But it's a character that is related to Thor. I'm not going to give away who his mother is. That is from the future. And somehow he is back in this particular story to help Thor out and even out the odds against him when he's fighting against these gods. And then, of course, teaming up with Sif and Thor. So that's what this volume is. The 19th issue, again, it is wonderful artists right here teaming up for one anniversary issue. And it's just a different artist doing just about every page. Sometimes an artist will get 2 pages and focusing on the different characters of Asgard. So this is really like the return of Tales of Asgard, if you remember those from the early years of Thor. And I thought that was such a cool and unique way, and I hope they keep doing it. Lee Garbed's art. Oh, love it. I hope they keep doing these kind of stories. Like, Al Ewing is just killing it on this run. In the back, we do have variant covers, some of them in thumbnail size, but as you saw, there's some covers in between issues and some of them in splash page size. There's that Dan Panosian cover and the back of the book here, rated Teen Plus. The book again has 120 pages, retails for $15.99. All right. Here we go with the spines of the books coming out this week. I do love the fact that Marvel, for the longest time, I think since Marvel Now, has been separating what the new stuff, the modern stuff, looks like compared to like their classic line. And that's by the white spine compared to that black spine. Not every case, but most of the time, if that's what you're looking for the classic stuff, we'll usually have a black spine. Now, let's continue with the overview. Captain America Epic Collection, Volume 7, The Swine. Now, a lot of people have been waiting for this one, and that is mainly because this is the last part of the Jack Kirby stuff. Now, I know some of this has been collected in omnibus format, but there's new stuff in here that has never been collected outside of the Marvel Masterworks. So what's collected in here? Captain America 201 to 221. That's right, we're going past those Jack Kirby issues and annuals 3 and 4. The book has 448 pages and retails for $49.99. Jack Kirby, Don Bluth writing the stories with Roy Thomas and Steve Gerber and other folks there. And then the pencils by Jack Kirby and our pal Sal Buscema with John Buscema, as well as George Tuska and others. Frank Giacoia doing the majority of the inks here for Jack Kirby. And then you have Dan Green's inks. I'll have to remind myself to look at that. And then Joe Sinat and Al Gordon and other inkers, letters like Jim Novak and Mike Royer and Joe Rosen, and then your colorists like George Russo's and Janice Cohen, Petra Goldberg, and Glennis Swine, just to name a few. And unfortunately, yes, some colorists are uncredited. Captain America created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. So this is really cool because this is now the return. Oh, look, special thanks to my buddy Scott Dunebeer and Ralph Macchio. This is the return of Jack Kirby to his character that he created, along with Joe Simon. And this is the tail end of that. So this is the story where we have the Night People. And this is when it gets a little sci-fi, which is what Jack Kirby loved to do. He's writing and drawing these particular issues. This is when Falcon is talking to Layla here on the phone, and apparently she gets kidnapped and something appears in the sky where both of them end up going through this portal and going into another dimension. So there's quite a bit of that in here and maybe a little bit of time travel. But Captain America finds out that his friend is now in another world. So he has to take it upon himself to go and do that. But he won't be alone, because coming with him is what is this guy's name? The Texas James? Is that his name? This gun-toting cowboy that ends up going with him, Texas Jack, that's his name, that ends up going with Captain America to go and rescue Layla and, of course, the Falcon from this world of the Night People. Now, when they come back, other things come back with them that leads into other storylines. And what happens to Texas Jack? Well, you can find out by reading that yourself. And we have this giant creature right here that is now walking our Earth in the 616 universe. And both Captain America and, of course, Falcon are trying to stop it, but he just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And then we get probably my favorite storyline that's collected in here, mainly because, well, 3 letters. And let me see if I can find her. But this is the Swine. This is all a sadistic prison commander right here, where in Central America, he's holding a bunch of prisoners and doing some scientific experiments. Now, the big standout to this is the first appearance. Man, where is she? I think she appears here. Yeah, this young lady right here. Woo, Donna Marie Puentes. Now, believe it or not, she is one hell of a supporting cast member. She actually helps out a ton through these issues. Plenty of spread pages. Goodness through here. Now, most people will probably remember this era of Captain America as the first appearance of none other than Arnim Sola, who will appear towards the end of, I think it's the end of this issue, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, Captain America goes and tries to freeze prisoners. There he is. He appears at the end of 208. Right there, without a name. But then here we find out the biofanatic is none other than Arnim Zola. So, Captain America, again, teaming up with Donna Marie Puentes to take down the Swine, and now Arnim Sola. While Sharon Carter is investigating this old man that could be, look at that, my gosh, that is gorgeous, that could have ties to Nazi Germany, but more importantly, oh no, the Red Skull. I don't know how many times that has happened in Captain America comics, where it couldn't be anybody else. Then, oh man, they tricked me again. It's the Red Skull. Of course it is. And then we start seeing Jack Kirby wrap up his run. There's this story right here that is just the insanity of Jack Kirby, and that is the Hitler's brain storyline right here. You can find out how that ends. And then we have kind of like the last bit of Jack Kirby's ongoing creation right here with the Night Flyer, tying it into the storyline with the Red Skull and wrapping that up, and that will lead into the these particular issues right here, which is the annuals. There we go. The first storyline is about the Black Star alien, and then the next storyline will be the fight against Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And that wraps up Jack Kirby's era on Captain America. And I've done a thorough overview of this in the omnibus format. It has been released as a volume 4, and of course the Captain America by Jack Kirby Omni, where the letter pages are printed. And it's just really sad and depressing to see how he was almost kind of booed off the book, which sucks to see that, especially if you created the character. In issue 215, we get like a recap issue with Roy Thomas and George Tuska telling you the origin of Captain America. I mean, you've got everybody in here. You know, he's still with Falcon, of course, but you've got Red Wing, you've got Bucky in here, the Red Skull, Submariner, Human Torch, Union Jack, Spitfire. And then you have like Captain America from the 50s, Nomad, Jack Monroe. You've got the second Red Skull. You've got his team up with the Avengers when he's woken up out of ice. So you've got Thor and Iron Man and Giant Man and the Wasp. You've got Scarlet Witch and Vision. So it's like a retelling of his origin, but it does it like a flashback, interesting kind of way, because when it gets to the conclusion, Captain America can't remember what it was like to be the man before Captain America. So it's like, I need to find out who Steve Rogers is. And these stories aren't really wrapped up until much later. Issue 216, by the way, you'll get an one page, but it is a reprint of Strange Tales 114. So it's like you get this extra page, and then there is no reprint. Like, they never do that for Marvel Epic Collections nor Omnis. And then you have the coming of Don Glut as the writer. Our pal Sal Buscema doing these particular stories, fighting against Marvel Boy, and still Captain America trying to find out who he is. And then he gets to fight this Captain America droid, if you will, the a Merit droid, that's what he's called. All built by this guy right here, who's a movie special effects guy. And that's what it leads to, this big fight between Captain America and the Amira droid, or Amira droid. And that's what wraps up these particular issues. Oh, the backup stories are collected in here too. There's 2 or 3 of them by Scott Edelman, Steve Leola doing the art there, and then the extras in the back, Bicentennial calendar, the 1977 calendar, and then original pages here from Jack Kirby. It's 448 pages, $49.99. I did want to look at this issue right here, 213, that is inked by Dan Green. Just kind of comparing it to when Jack Kirby and Frank Giacoia were working together. Just like those big bold lines compared to Dan Green. Dan Green was one of my favorite inkers. But just how different it looks, you know, compared to the stuff here. Or even the issue that precedes it, like right here. So even when, like, Jack Kirby's inking his own stuff. But yeah, this is Dan Green. Man, he had been at the game for a long time. But that's Captain America Epic Collection, Volume 7, The Swine. Daredevil, Modern Era Epic Collection, Volume 6, The Devil in Cell Block D. Of course, it has to be D. Always love this image here by David Finch. I remember when they had this solicited, the cover for the actual issue, I thought it was Joe Quesada, honestly. But nope, it's David Finch with Danny Mickey on inks. So this is Volume 6, and again, the Modern Era Epic Collections also put the years, 2006 to 2007. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Spoilers if you haven't read the Brian Michael Bendis run, if you're waiting on this one, and you just can't wait to read it. I don't think they've wrapped up Bendis yet in Epic Collection. I could be mistaken, but I didn't think it was done yet, as far as the Daredevil Modern Epics, because we've got 3 of those, and this is Volume 6. So, yes. If you haven't read it, do yourself a favor and finish that first, because this will spoil the ending. I'm not going to reveal exactly the reason why, but I am going to have to talk about the status quo, and also something big that happens in here that makes this such a powerful and unique read. So, spoilers, just in case. Okay, you've been warned. Again, for the things that happen in Bendis' run, and for the big thing that happens here that kind of gets the story going. All right, written by Ed Brubaker. Michael Lark is his right-hand guy, drawing a majority of this stuff with Stefano Guadino and David Aja, Andy Parks. And then you have the actual colors of June Chung and Scott Koblish and Matt Hollingsworth. And here we go. We kick it off with issue 82. So collected in here is issue 82 of Daredevil to 94, all the way to annual number 1. Actually, annual number 1 kind of wraps up this run right here, or wraps up this book. So what happened in the previous story arcs? Well, Matt Murdock was outed as being Daredevil. Like, people know his identity. He's been fighting it. He's like, I am not Daredevil. And then towards the end of Bendis' run, something happens that sends Daredevil to Rikers. So he's in prison, but he is in there as Matt Murdock. So it starts off with Hell's Kitchen, New York City. So you think, oh, it's a flashback because we know that Matt's in prison. So you're like, okay, it's just a bunch of bad guys. They're all getting the crap kicked out of them. These people are seeing it from their window, and they're like, wait a second, isn't Daredevil supposed to be in prison? And you're like, wait. If Matt Murdock isn't here, then who's Daredevil? That's mystery number 1, and you will find out through this book who that is and what their purpose is. But yes, Matt Murdock is now behind bars. But what makes this such a compelling run is that Matt Murdock is not alone here. He's put at Rikers. He's put in here with people like Black Tarantula, the Owl, and then, of course, the Kingpin, plus other like Hammerhead and villains like that. Foggy Nelson and of course Ben Urich, they're all still trying to clear Matt's name for something that he's been blamed. Daredevil, the new Daredevil, or maybe another Daredevil, approaches Foggy and tells him, what's taking so long. And Foggy's like, look, I don't want to be distracted. Again, this is going to be a spoiler for the big thing that happens here. Believe it or not, the thing that happens here, the big thing, is not the prison that Matt's in. But yes, it's really cool to see Matt Murdock deal with these prisoners. Like, he's still fighting the fact that he is not, I'm going to skip a little bit through here, that he is not Daredevil. Like, he's like, I'm not. I'm a blind guy. Leave me alone. I'm just doing my time here until I can get out. What Brian Michael Bendis did was tell us a story. This is what I think is the difference between both of these writers, and both of them equally as talented when it comes to writing Daredevil. Brian Michael Bendis, what he did was write a crime and mob story for most of the run. Brubaker comes in and writes a crime story with that noir thriller that we've come to expect of him. Now, of course, there's a dash of the adventure and the detective stories. So if you love things like Gotham Central or even Criminal, oh my gosh, you are in for a treat. He brings in older characters like Dakota North. He brings in Becky back. So something happens at the end of the first issue where Foggy comes and visits Matt, and he's telling him, look, people are going to be after me. They don't want you cleared. They want you to spend your life here rotting in prison. So these villains can do whatever they want to with you. And he's hired Dakota North. It's kind of like his bodyguard. But these prisoners end up beating her and stabbing Foggy Nelson. And Matt's like, I can't hear his heartbeat. They killed my friend. And of course, who could be behind this? Maybe, maybe not. It's the Kingpin. Now, that's the big thing that happens. That's what kind of drives Matt to do the right thing. Stay and do his time while his name is being cleared out there legally, because that's what Foggy would have wanted. Now, you can find out exactly how things shape up, and he stays in prison for a while. I mean, this isn't like, all right, he's in there for 2 issues and then he breaks out. No, he's in there for a while, and you will find out, like I mentioned, who the other Daredevil is, what his friends are up to. There's an amazing story in here where Frank Castle gets arrested to get thrown in prison to break Matt out. And Matt's like, dude, what the hell are you doing? I'm doing my time. Go back out there to Hell's Kitchen. It's slipping and it's out of control. And that new Daredevil isn't cutting it. So maybe he's aware of the new Daredevil. But man, it is such a freaking treat and a joy to read. I'm going to skip a little bit through here. If you've never read this, you are going to be just blown away, especially if you're a fan of course, Ed Brubaker. Later on, is the new Daredevil still taking on all these villains? Is Matt still in prison? We get some surprise guest stars through here from his past, including, I've mentioned Becky, I mentioned Dakota North, but also Mila. Mila's issue is beautiful, and it's got this, what is it, 94. This, yes, it's got this beautiful John Romita love type of comic cover on there. Look at that. And it is such a beautiful return, but also reminiscing of this love that they had for each other. And then you have the annual, which features a fight between Daredevil and Black Tarantula, and what Black Tarantula looks like, and what Black Tarantula exactly wants out of this day and age, because it's a lot different than the way things used to be. But that's what this is. This is Daredevil by Ed Brubaker, but also Michael Lark, of course, playing a huge part through here. It's no longer the mystery as to if Matt is outed as being Daredevil, what is the world to do, or how is he going to react to that? He's dealing with it. He's dealing with it the way that Matt Murdock would deal with it, Like, he is trying to become the man on top on prison while still holding back and not getting in trouble. And it's a lot different than the stories that came, because, this isn't the first time that Matt has been outed, of course, as being Daredevil. This isn't the first or last time you're going to see him behind bars, but it's just such a unique way of handling it. So if you've read Civil War, this will let you know who is behind the mask in Civil War, because Civil War was happening during this particular era when Matt was behind bars. Now, let's look all the way in the back, because there are a couple of extras, like this piece right here, which is the introduction by Bendis to the Omnibus Volume 1, talking about how the idea of that cliffhanger of putting Matt behind bars was actually Ed Brubaker's. He wanted to be put in a corner. This is a interview with Michael Lark, talking about the behind the scenes and taking a close look at his studio, or I guess his studio back in 2006, and just looking at some of the original art through here, and then an afterword by Ed Brubaker right here, which is always nice to see the creators do afterwards or forwards, and then variant covers, which they didn't really do a lot back then. Cover sketches, and cover pencils, and thumbnail sketches. Still love that cover. It stands out, I swear, but I love it. And then there is an ad for the modern Iron Man there, the new Iron Age, and look at that, the modern era epic collections are growing. 376 pages, $49.99. This book, if you've never read it, I think it goes without saying, this gets my seal of approval. If you've read it and you haven't revisited it for a while, still gets my seal of approval. This was such a fun read. Like, I remember when I looked at the stack of comics, I was like, oh, cool, Immortal, Thor, and I really like Spider-Boy. And I was like, well, let's reread the Captain America. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't reread the whole thing. I just read the new stuff, because I've read this just recently for the Omnibus overview. But when it came to this, I was like, wait, I just read the reprint Omnibus. I'll be okay just flipping through here, making sure the pages are all in order and nothing is misprinted. I just found myself reading it again because it's just such a great read. Like, and you deserve it to read this particular era of Daredevil. Oh my gosh, if you've been waiting for it, yeah, it's here. But that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. In the comments down below, let me know if you are picking these up, if you are waiting for an omnibus edition, or if you're waiting for oversized hardcovers, or if you've never read any of the series and you're so excited to finally get to read Jack Kirby's return, or actually this is sort of like the last part of his return, or Ed Brubaker's Daredevil. But that's it, everybody. Any questions, leave them down below. Smash that like button on the way out. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.